Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. I'm very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. And welcome to episode 22, is it, of Smallville, the saviour of Superman. I want you to close your eyes and I want you to think about this. If someone like Mark Waid or one of those big comic book writers came up to you and said, I am writing a pre-Superman story about Clark Kent on the farm, living with Smallville, going to high school. This story will run for 10 years. He will go to high school. He will have friends. He will date Lana Lan. Let me say that again. He will date Lana Lan. I can't bloody say a bloody name. What's wrong with me? Lana Lan. Yeah, bloody hell. What happened there, right? Anyway, so he will date Lana, right? He'll have a friend called Chloe. Pete Ross, who we know from the comics, of course. He's a photographer in the comics. We'll see the relationship between his parents, and everything that happened in Smallville, having the Legion in it, Doomsday, having this friendship between Lex Luthor and Lex having this kind of sick, twisted relationship with his father, Lionel Luthor. I think if someone come up to you and said, we were doing this pre-Superman story, I think you'd be really excited, and that Lois Lane will enter the show in the 4th book, right? I think most people will be going, wow, I can't wait to read this graphic novel. And it comes in 10 hardback copies, right? Wow, how amazing would that be? Well, guess what? That's what we got on television. 10 years, 10 chapters of What's wrong with me today? 10 chapters of Smallville, right? Small. That could be the sequel, right? Or the prequel. Let's not go prequel, eh? We've been there and done that, haven't we? Anyway, right? So just imagine that in comic book form. In fact, I don't know why they don't do special kind of graphic novels, just kind of charting like each season of Smallville, like proper DC Comics, graphics and, artwork. That'll be a lot of fun. But it just goes to show you. And I mean, a lot of people, I've done this before on here. I've kind of compared Arrow versus Smallville. And I think you should compare Arrow versus Smallville because they always compare it to Smallville. Anyway, they keep on saying, if it wasn't for Smallville, there'd be no Arrowverse. That's great, isn't it? Blaming Smallville for Arrowverse. I know that's not what they're doing. And it's interesting with Arrowverse because in its first 2 years in terms of Arrow and The Flash, both those first 2 seasons, it gave Smallville a great run for its money. I mean, in places you could say it went beyond what Smallville did in those first 2 years. They accomplished a lot. But Smallville was able to have one show. They were going to do a spin-off called Aquaman with Justin Hartley, who went on to play Oliver Queen, a.k.a. the Green Arrow. But I do think that it's amazing what Smallville achieved with just one show. Not only did it charter this kind of pre-Superman story and this development not only of Clark Kent, but of Lex Luthor and Lois Lane as well, and so many other aspects of Superman lore. It did it with one show. And then when you think about the DC heroes and villains they brought into the show, it's really just one show. And they did that successfully. You can pinpoint something where you may not like this version of a DC character, but I think mostly to put all these characters that Superman's meant to face when he's Superman, but young Clark is meeting them earlier on in his life. And then you have to do it in a different way. But it still works. I think the Zod and the Kandorians, as I spoke about the other day on Smallville, the Saviour of Superman, was done very, very well. I think Callum Blue had great quality. But as I said the other day, I think Sam Witwer could continue in. He's, playing on Smallville, but this time not as Davis Bloom, but as Zod would have been really intimidating because I like Sam's bigger frame. I think his performance as Davis was amazing. And I thought that would have been really, really interesting to continue that arc on from Davis as well. But they didn't do that. I think Callum Blue was great casting. And I think Callum Blue was mainly picked because he has an English accent. And because in Superman the movie and in the Donnerverse, Kryptonian spoke with an English accent. So I think they wanted to continue that. I don't think that was really important with Davis because, or should I say with Sam Witwer, if he couldn't do a British accent, because I think we saw with Man of Steel, and I think that the way Zod did it there, he didn't speak with an American accent, but he didn't speak with a British accent. He spoke clearly without any accents, which I think was a very interesting way to do it. I mean, he's my favourite Sod, the guy from Man of Steel. I thought he was absolutely amazing, and his name escapes me. And I know his name. I'm always talking about him. But Michael Shannon, that's right. He's the best version of General Zod. And I love Terrence Stamp, and I love Terrence Stamp as Jor-El on Smallville as well. His voice is just so commanding, isn't it? But I do think that's why Callum Blue was picked. I thought Callum did a really, really good job. I don't want you to misunderstand me. I think there were elements within his arc where they watered him down a bit, like him sleeping with Tess. We won't go into that. We'll move on. Anyway, was that the Escape episode or the Fortune? It was the Escape. I hate that episode, and I hate Fortune even more. That's when Smallville became really, really CW, wasn't it? But anyway, Smallville was great for its 10 years, right? There's things you can pick from any show that you don't like. But ultimately, Smallville was amazing. And, yeah, I bet you're shouting at the screen. You ain't got rid of your phone again, have you? Never mind. Someone else will pick it up eventually. So I think the thing is with me, and the reason I do these shows, these videos, is because I just want to chart the show and look back on the achievements. Now I always say on here, achievements upon achievement. Because this is the thing for me. Smallville was one show, but it probably achieved just as much of the Arrowverse, or maybe even more. I would dare to say that actually Smallville, in its 10 years, has actually achieved more than Arrowverse. At the end of this season, eight seasons of Arrow. What, nearly 5 seasons of Supergirl, 6 seasons of The Flash. Legends of Tomorrow's been around, what, 3 or 4, maybe 5 years? I can't remember. You know, you got Black Lightning as well? You know, that's many more multiple seasons than Smallville. Now, there's some characters that Smallville didn't get to charter. But ultimately, I think Smallville was a better show than any of those shows. And what I liked about Smallville, and I've also mentioned this before, it was emotional. And, you know, I've always said about Smallville, what was amazing to me, you know, a scene between Lex and Lionel could be as awesome as any CGI fight that Clark was having with a Freak of the Week or a supervillain or something like that. And I think that goes to tell you something about the show, that no matter what they did, it was never dull, it was never boring. And the dialogue scenes were just as exciting as the superhero stuff, the stuff in the Fortress, the stuff with Clark and Brainiac, or Doomsday, or anything else. The scenes in the Kent farm between Jonathan, Martha and Clark, especially in the early seasons, were beautiful. It was a show, fully rounded. And I'll tell you something else. The budget on Smallville was nowhere near as high as it is on Arrowverse. But some of the effects on the show, most of the effects, were still stunning. Another achievement upon achievements on Smallville.